Hey, it's Aaron the Metal Theologian. Let's do some real Chromie D music here today. These guys are even Canadian. This is Rock City. Not the heaviest thing ever, not by a long shot. It's funny, my light's all kind of fucked up. I think because one of the bulbs burned out up there and I could get on a stool and change it, but I'm too lazy, so I'll have to do it later. Yeah, this is Canada's newest and most dynamic rock group to hit the music scene today. I maybe have to take my word for it. It says it right there. I don't know, man. I've always liked this record. Now, this kind of appealed to me because I've been kind of listening to some of the wimpier stuff lately anyway. And it's funny because by that standard, this is actually pretty heavy. I've been listening to even kind of wimpier shit than this, and I'll go into that in a minute. Because that's what y'all tune in for, is to see what kind of music is giving me issues this week, you know? Anyway, yeah, super, AOR looking cover, you know? But these songs are pretty rockin', you know? And just in case you think these guys are too soft, look on the inside there, you can see it's actually printed black instead of white like it almost always is on the inside of records. I guess that's like their souls if you look inside. They all look all sort of soft and wimpy and, you know, not too intimidating, but on the inside they're just as evil as Hellhammer. They want you to know that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been listening to a lot of kind of wimpier shit. Yeah, but there's a little kind of funny story I was going to tell first before I fucking forget, because I will. So hopefully y'all are subscribed to Jurgen over at 6 Beers, 9 Wives. I'm pretty sure is what his channel's called these days. It has a skull, or a skeleton middle finger hand in the logo. So if you subscribe to that, you're in the right place. So, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably know that I lived in Germany for a few years in the 80s. And one of the sort of wonderful little coincidences of YouTube is that Jurgen lives probably 15, 20 minutes away from where I lived when I was over there. So anyway, I think I'm a couple years older than him, unfortunately, because, you know, aging and all. But, you know, just started talking with him that it seems like we were probably at some of the same shows when I was over there, because we were in the same kind of music and shit, right? So one of the ones that's always sort of stood out in my mind, because he's talked about it a few times too, is a Megadeth show. Okay, so Megadeth played there in 1988. They were there with Testament. They was touring on So Far, So Good, So What, which is funny in retrospect, because it was maximum drunk fucking Dave Mustaine era, right? And then Testament was with them touring on the New Order, and Flotsam and Jetsam on No Place for Disgrace, and Sanctuary on their first album. So I remember this as being in Würzburg, this show. Okay, now most of the shows that I went to, the town I was in was called Erlangen, and that was kind of too small a town. There almost never shows right in Erlangen. So you usually have to go to Nuremberg, the famous Nuremberg. And one of the sort of main venues for shows actually is outside of Nuremberg, and town right next door called Fürth. It's a place called the Hämmerlein Halle, Hämmerlein Hall. But when bands, but that was if bands didn't stop in Nuremberg, the next closest place where they would usually play was Würzburg. That was a lot closer than driving all the way to fucking Munich or whatever from where I was. So I had it in my head that I had seen Megadeth in Würzburg. Okay, positive, right? And he was like, "Oh yeah, I saw them in Nuremberg though." And it's there. I always kind of figured Jurgen was probably mistaken because I was sure I'd seen him in Würzburg. And if they had played in Nuremberg, because it was closer than Würzburg, it would have been less of an imposition on my dad to drive me all the way out to, just to drive me up to Nuremberg instead of all the way out to Würzburg. I was just sure of this. So yeah, so recently he found a poster image somewhere where it had it was that line up, and they were playing in Nuremberg, and I was like, well shit man, I'm sure I saw him in Würzburg though. Why the hell would I have gone to Nuremberg? So I went to look up the tour dates to see if I could figure something out. And apparently they didn't even fucking play in Würzburg on that tour. So I must have seen him in Nuremberg, which means I was definitely at the same show as Jurgen, which is kind of awesome, right? Like I said, a little sort of funny small world thing. But it's kind of fascinating because even now, even having been presented with, with some guy on the internet who put up together those tour dates, but this is as well substantiated as anything like this can be, 30 years after the fact. So basically, it's clear that I was just mistaken. Like, my memory was just fucking wrong. But even knowing that, like, in my head, I still, like, picture the venue in Würzburg, you know? And so it just, it's funny because, like, you know, you hear things like, you know, memories, like, super fallible and, like, eyewitness testimony is, like, the weakest form of evidence in a courtroom and that sort of thing. But it's not very often that you get confronted with it in this sort of a way where, like, I have these memories that I think are as clear as any memories I have from 30 years ago, 35 years ago, you know? And they're just fucking wrong, you know? It's right there. Like, I can't really deny it. So, you know, it's just kind of fascinating to sort of, like, see things that way. So I guess the moral of the story is always be open to the idea that you might be wrong. Because I was sure I wasn't wrong, but clearly I was. So that's the way it goes. So I want to give a special shout out to the Zonk Man. Alright, I'm going to put his link down in the fucking comments if I don't forget. I hope you all are subscribed to the Zonk Man anyway. But, yeah, he sent me, one of the fucking best outs. He said, okay, so he sent me a record, which is really fucking cool of him, alright? King Buffalo. I had no King Buffalo in my collection. And this is like one of the sort of premier, like, stoner rock bands, right? So, like, as into the shit as I've gotten, I haven't listened to much of it lately, but as into the shit as I've gotten over the last few years, sort of metaphysically, like, I basically have a whole section of it on record now, because I bought so much of it. This really belongs in there. You know, I'm really way overdue on some King Buffalo, so, the Zonkman's proselytizing is well received. I think his channel is called Steve Bender, by the way. It might be something else, but it's not the Zonkman, which is kind of funny, because he is the Zonkman, you know? Anyway, like I said, I'll link it. Subscribe to him if you're not already. I hope you are. He's been on Grown Man Record Night a lot lately, too, which has been awesome to see. So, anyway, though. Dude, this is just... I won't read you the whole, letter, but, like, Z is crazy. Everyone needs King Buffalo in their collection. I've just been zonked. That's so good, man. It's like one of the best little notes I've ever gotten in one of these. Alright, so that is definitely going to get, like, played and enjoyed and digested. And it does find me well. And, like I said, special shout out to the Zonk Man. Because he's a hell of a guy anyway. And I really enjoy his channel anyway. But it was really cool of him to send me that record, too. Alright, so let's put on this Rock City record, and I'm gonna hype another record that I've been listening to pretty much every day. So here's the funny thing: I've kind of been listening to hard rock shit, and kind of reaching for some of the wimpier stuff, which, you know, isn't necessarily wimpy. I mean, I kind of play that up for laughs, you know, talking about how I'm listening to the wimpy shit. Okay, obviously, but I've just been in the mood for, like, a little bit more by way of synth, a little more by way of vocal harmonies, maybe a little bit of prog elements in there, and, like, not quite AOR. Like, if you go all the way into AOR land, you kind of lose me a little bit, you know? And it's like there's a sort of fine line, you know? Like, I'm not looking for Foreigner, you know? This is Asia, Armed to the Teeth. Okay, this is not the supergroup Asia. This is Asia from South Dakota. This is a reissue. It's actually, there's a more recent reissue of this, but the originals are like, I don't know, $100, $120, something like that. This is an earlier reissue on Acid Nightmare Records, which is, I don't know, apparently of questionable legitimacy, but, you know, fuck it, that's life. I'm finding there's, like, a certain sort of level of, like, synth and sort of cheese that I'm looking for. And, like, if there's not enough of it, I haven't really been wanting to hear it. It's funny because that Rock City was kind of on the low end, cheese-wise. You know, it was right there in the zone. It was okay, you know. But it was sort of on the lower end of that spectrum. And, like, I don't know, I was just sampling a couple things online, sort of looking for new shit, you know. And there's... Oh, I don't know, I can't come up with a good example right off. But, you know, like, anything that's too synth-heavy is going to put me off, too. And what I've sort of realized is that this is such a good riff. It's sort of like an epic feel, but, like, not really all that tough, you know? I mean, it's also like 78 or 79, this record, in fairness. Okay, this is early. And that's actually kind of a key thing too, because I've been listening to a lot. I've listened to a lot of like '70s hard rock in the past. And my copy of Fireball's right here somewhere. You know, especially like the German shit bands like Birth Control and shit like that. I mean, obviously the Sabbath and the Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, all that stuff. I love that stuff. But like the later '70s, I haven't really spent as much time with. You know, I mean, I like some of that stuff. You know, I have a few things here that like Legend from the Fjords, of course, like Winterhawk Revival, that record. That's another great one. You know, but I haven't really spent as much time sort of hanging out in that area as in the first half of the '70s. That's kind of what I've been looking for. So that's really kind of the sweet spot these guys are right in. And what I kind of realized is that the gold standard, really, for the shit that I've been in the mood for, is this. The fucking first Angel record. I swear I've been listening to this record, like, since I figured it out that what I was really after was Angel, I've been listening to this record, like, every day. I have the second one, too. I pulled that one out. But, it's really just this perfect mix of sort of like kind of epic and kind of bombastic, but not like total pomp. You know what I mean? Like just sort of enough of that, like enough sort of prog sensibility that you sort of get that sense of grandiosity, but without it being too heavy. You know what I mean? Usually when I'm looking for that kind of grandiosity, I'm going for like a Manowar or something like that, where there's really a lot of meat. You know, this is not as meaty as Manowar in more ways than one, but it's pretty good. Here's another one I've been playing a lot, man. This fucking Full Moon record. Yeah, this is another one. This is a reissue. I think this was legitimate. This is like 1980. And I remember the first time I heard this, I was like looking for more like metal, and I thought it was fucking crap. I hated it. And I kind of put it away, and it was one that I sort of came back to every so often over the years. Partially because it was Monster that did this reissue, actually. And generally speaking, if Monster is the predecessor to Rockadrome, and it still applies, right? But generally speaking, if Monster took the trouble to reissue something, there was something special about it. Like they did the Slaughter Extroius record, which is how I first came across that one. Winterhawk Revival, that's another one I came across because of those guys. It was two guys at the time. So that was really sort of the pull that sort of brought me back to it repeatedly. And it's kind of grown on me a little bit. But this week, this is like perfect. This fucking Full Moon record. Yeah, songs like Night Calls, where I was just like, that chorus is just too like fucking syrupy for me. This week I'm like, I'm all in, man. I haven't even put this on for a minute, but I've been listening to this Asia record every day too. In fact, I just got there's a newer reissue of that one. This one just came in the mail like today, the first one, because I didn't already have this one. You know, again, I wasn't going to cough up for an original of this, but you know, 78, 79. It's funny, they recorded it in Minneapolis, and that's sort of my experience with Dakotas too. I spent a little bit of time in Fargo once, just like a couple weeks for a project I was working on. But and okay, Fargo's in North Dakota, but there's not a whole lot of difference between North and South Dakota. South Dakota's the one with Mount Rushmore. And like when I went to Fargo, I was like, well, if I'm going to be in Fargo, I at least want to visit that fucking Paul Bunyan statue that's in the movie, right? And it wasn't until I was like getting ready to go and actually do it that I figured out that was actually in Brainerd, Minnesota, which is like 3 hours away. So even that like fucking stupid ass Paul Bunyan statue, which was like as low as I could set my expectation of Fargo. Yeah, that was way the hell out there. You know, I usually have a pretty easy time finding good things up places, but there was really not much about Fargo. It was really pretty boring. Didn't even have Paul Bunyan, like I said. Anyway, all this by way of, because I noticed that first of all, there were like no like young people there. It was mostly like either older people or whatever else, because all the young people moved to the city. And they called the city, the city is Minneapolis. So I was like, oh yeah, my kids moved to the city. And it was always Minneapolis. So it makes sense to me these guys from South Dakota would have to go to fucking Minneapolis to record, you know? It was probably even more sparsely populated in the late 70s than now, you know? Before credit card companies and shit started moving to South Dakota because of the laws, you know? Yeah, I really kind of hate to talk shit about any state because there's always kind of something to appreciate, you know? And North Dakota is unique, but yeah, there's not a lot there in my experience. And I was like in the most, that was in the, like the big city by North Dakota standards too. I think Fargo's the biggest city in the state, so I don't know that Grand Forks would be a lot more exciting. You know, this, see, when I'm like in total metal mode, when I'm wanting to hear like Interceptor, you know, or like Venom or something, this is just fucking cheesy crap. But this week, man, it's perfect. I'm all in, you know. So yeah, don't snooze on Asia. These guys actually predate the other ones too, so if anyone stole from anyone else, it was these poor guys who got ripped off. On the other hand, I think these guys are probably more respected in retrospect, you know, because people kind of go like this with Asia from the, you know, the 80s band, the supergroup. Yeah, so what else do we have here? Yeah, so here's another one actually. This is another Acid Nightmare one. Another late 70s one. Yeah, this is actually 77, and they're, it looks like they're Canadian. It's dedicated to Tommy Bolin. And that tracks. I mean, look at these fucking guys, actually. Kurt Smith, man. I mean, they all look fantastic, don't get me wrong, but this one is a little bit, this is kind of, so if Rock City was on the low end of the spectrum with like the synth level, this is sort of the high end of the spectrum, and Angel is like right in the middle, that first Angel album, you know? This one's kind of pushing it a little bit as far as like my ability to tolerate the synths and that. But I do kind of like the songs, man, and like, I mean, I've been listening to this one a lot too, right? And some days I'll put it on, I'm like, yeah, that's really hitting the spot. And sometimes I'm putting it on and going, that's a little bit much, you know? So this kind of pushes my like rock and roll instincts a little bit, but yeah, Alpha Centauri, I'm probably gonna keep this one forever too, because it's kind of a gem, you know? I'm just not sure what kind of gem it is, you know what I mean? Like it might be a sort of a shit gem instead of like, you know, an awesome gem. This is, if I try and pursue that analogy, it's not going to go anywhere, so I think we'll let it go. But yeah, Alpha Centauri is worth a listen in any case. If you hate it, I fucking warned you. Incidentally, I've been doing a little bit of dabbling into some heavier stuff here too occasionally. It's like maybe every fifth record or so I'm putting on something like this fucking Soul Grinder record. This is their latest one. Definitely a lot heavier than anything else I've shown this video, and probably anything I'm gonna show for the rest of the video, so you're warned. But yeah, this is a very strong recommendation. I think I like the first one a little bit more, but I also listened to the first one more, so that might just be, you know, acclamation. This record's totally fantastic. Yeah. Filth Encrusted by Soul Grinder, man. Fucking awesome. I've hyped them before. These guys are current. They're actually playing some shows, sometime around like now, like maybe this coming weekend or maybe last weekend. I'm not sure because I'm in the wrong part of the country to get to see him. But yeah, Soul Grinder's fucking fantastic, man. If I ever get a chance to see him, I'm gonna fucking seize it, you know. Yeah, so here's another one of these sorts of bands. This is a different band called Winterhawk. And they actually made 2 albums that have just been reissued kind of recently. And now that I'm like totally in the headspace with this kind of shit, I grabbed them both. It's actually a Greek label that does pretty nice work, Cult Rock Classics. I think I've talked about them because they did that Omega record and that Patriarch record. And some of those other ones that are still out over here because I've still been listening to these. Yeah, look back here in my fucking shit that I've already shown in videos but I'm not ready to put away yet stack. Still got this one sitting there. Yeah, and this one. This Omega one, too. So, yeah. It's the same label as that shit. So they did a really nice job. Nice heavy vinyl and all that kind of shit. So this is a different Winterhawk from the Revival Winterhawk. And these guys actually had 2 albums. This Dog Soldier one, which I think is the second one. This is 1980. And then this other one, which I think is the first one, called Electric Warriors. Yeah, this is a 79, so... If I were going to recommend one Winter Hawk, I'd probably say go to the Revival one first, because it's a little bit more, I want to say it's more guitar-centric, but it's really not. It's just a little bit more sort of rock-centric. This one tends to be a little bit more sort of ballady, these guys. A lot of guitar on it, though, too. This really isn't like a synthy record or anything like that. And, again, I just really like the songs, man. Just well put together. You know, this kind of... I don't want to say these guys sound like ZZ Top, because they don't. But they kind of appeal to me on a similar sort of level, in that if you listen to those early ZZ Top records, you know, like Rio Grande Mud and the first one, that sort of thing, right? The early ZZ Top, it's very much like sort of a guitar-based trio, you know what I mean? The songs are like, there's a lot of guitar playing sort of focus, and it's just a style that captivates me, too. I'm not like the biggest guitar guy. For a metal fan, I kind of don't give a fuck about guitar, you know? By which I don't mean I don't give a fuck about guitar. I just mean, like, I'm not one of these guys who just, like, is in it for the guitar, you know? I'd say more like a bass and drums guy and overall composition and, you know, the singer, and, yeah, the guitar is an essential part of it. But, it's not what draws me in, you know what I mean? But ZZ Top is, like, a big exception to that. Like, Billy Gibbons, his playing, I could sit and listen to all afternoon, you know what I mean? And especially on those early records with that really sort of spare sound, you know, with a lot of space in it. And that's kind of the level that this Winter Hawk works on, too. So even though there's a four-piece band, the songwriting style is really very different, but aesthetically it hits me in a similar way as that kind of shit. I think that's part of why it appeals to me. Yeah, this kind of goes against what I've been saying about the synths, because there's really no synth to speak of on these records. I don't think there's any on these, in fact. Like, they might have snuck a little bit in here or there, you know? Yeah, if there's a fucking lick of synth on either of these, I can't remember where the hell it was. Anyway, the point is, I don't know, man. It just fucking works for me. Just good rock and roll shit. You know, so I'm actually gonna put some on for a minute. Pull off this Asia record. There's always the fun part is figuring out where I put the inner. Sometimes I feel like I spend half my videos looking for inners. There it is. Yeah, and then we'll show another one that's kind of more in the corny end of the spectrum. Oh, I'm going to put on Dog Soldier. Because if you listen to my channel, if you watch my channel, you're probably going to gravitate towards the first record first. That's my shitty influence, because that's what I always do. That's kind of how I collect anyway, you know what I mean? It's like, I get in with the first record, and like, as soon as a band puts out a shitty record, I bail. So I joke about how I'm a lousy fan, because like, I'm totally like, not loyal at all. Which really isn't completely true. You can make a clunker record and then win me back over. But I don't tend to be in it for like, the long haul, like record after record. It's more like, if I have a choice between getting a fourth record by a band that I already have 3 records by, and getting a first record by a band I've never really spent any time with before, I'm going to go for the new one every time, you know? Now see, that definitely guitar focus, a lot of space in the sound, and really kind of straight ahead songwriting, but some kind of cheesy shit that you could point to and go, that's corny, you know? But it all just comes together to this whole that I just fucking dig, man. There's a lot of lead guitar going on there, too. Alright, so what else are we going to talk about? Alright, this one, man. This is pretty corny, this one, but I kind of love it, man. Fucking Ground Star. Forced Landing. This is not a reissue. Actually, I think there are 2 different versions of this for some reason. I don't really know what the deal is. I don't really care. These guys are from California, it looks like. LA address on Olympic Boulevard. Yeah, recorded in Santa Monica, mastered in Hollywood. Cover photo from JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. Like, it has like all the fucking Southern California. It's like a Southern California Full House, you know? Yeah, this was pretty cheesy, man, but I kind of love this one. Now, this is another one of those. This is actually more than a lot of records. When I'm like not in the mood for this one, when I put this on, I fucking hate it. Like the last 2 or 3 times before this past week that I put this on, like, man, that's a fucking turd. How did I get talked into buying that fucking record? It was actually my record dealer friend in Colombia who put me onto this thing. I got it from him, and there's a price tag on it, but that's not how much it was. That's just on the thing. It was cheaper than that. It's not a very expensive record. But yeah, it's just cool, man. It's kind of spacey and kind of synthy and kind of like big and grandiose in a way. But I don't know, it doesn't cross that line to that sort of like arena rock thing that kind of just annoys me, you know? They never sound like Boston, you know? They just sound like, you know, a band that's kind of heavy but kind of wimpy too, and it's 1980, and like some people in 1980 are really making bold steps forward, like Iron Maiden, you know, and some like Groundstar are kind of floundering a little bit more. And this week I'm kind of in it for the floundering, man. Yeah, here's another one I pulled out this week for like late 70s, like with lots of synth and shit. This is one that Scott Waters actually put me onto. There's another one from 1980. Yeah, Jimmy Hotz, man. Yeah, this is actually a Jesus record, I think. Beyond the Crystal Sea. Like, it's not super, It's more sort of implied, you know what I mean? There might be something in here where he's more specific. God, these fucking pictures. Like, that cover, you're like, God, he looks really good. Like, can he possibly live up to that in person? You tell me, man. I love that he doesn't smile. Like, total straight face, you know? So yeah, it's on Vision Records. You know, there's some sort of Christian themes on this one, but it doesn't, like, beat you over the head with it, you know? And I don't know, you know, I've gone out on a limb before saying that, the old adage about how bands would like they focus more on the music and they don't hit you over the head with the Christianity, like those are the good ones. I don't necessarily buy that because I found that some of my favorite like Christian bands are like really heavy-handed with the, you know, with the turn or burn shit, you know what I mean? Like really sort of where you're like, ooh, you know, and sometimes the ones that go easier on it are kind of less interesting, you know, like U2 or something like that, you know, fuck them, give a shit. So Jimmy Hotz isn't that heavy-handed, but it's still a really good record, man. And you know, it lives up to that cover, both in terms of the cheese, but also in terms of the vision. You know what I mean? And sort of the grandiosity of it. And this is probably the most synth-heavy one that I've shown this evening, but I really like it, man. It really kind of fits in with the overall vibe of First Angel, man. That's my gold standard this week, is a fucking First Angel. Yeah, here's another one. I just listened to this one earlier. It didn't really impress me a whole lot. I was kind of hoping it would scratch the itch, because this is one of those that's just kind of wimpy and usually not what I'm in the mood for. And I thought it might scratch the itch this time, but I thought the songs are kind of weak, you know? It's not terrible. It's really not even bad, but it didn't really hit me this week. But, I don't know, man. It's still an interesting record, though. I'm kind of fascinated by this whole era, you know? Because, you know, heavy metal hadn't really made its transition from what was metal in the 70s to what heavy metal would be sort of in its fully realized, like, 1980s form. Like, you know, just sort of, I hate to say like the template, you know what I mean? But the conventions weren't as firmly established as they would become in the 80s, you know? And some of these guys are finding their way there, and some were kind of trying to find their way there and not really quite as successful, but sort of were going for it. And I don't know, the shit's just interesting to me too. First song here is called She's a Lady, and every time they get to the chorus, they say that, I get the Tom Jones song in my head over their fucking song. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's probably not the best, the highest praise, but let's put it this way. That's going to continue to be another one of those records that I pull out every so often and give another chance to. And probably every second or third or fourth time, I'll be into it. And the other times I'll be like, you know. I wish this were as good as like that Survivor All Your Pretty Moves record or something like that. It's just kind of not, you know. But you know what fucking rules is Winterhawk. And Asia from South Dakota. And Full Moon. Yeah, and even fucking Groundstar. And Rock City, so we bring it back around to where we started, so. that's what I've got this week. So thanks for watching. I didn't know there was such a thing as being on an angel kick, but that's kind of been like my my North Star this week. So thanks for watching.